Good morning. I think it's the 6th of January, that's me. We're only 6 days into the month and I'm already forgetting what date it is. So thank you very much for your messages yesterday regarding the vlog. And I hope you're well. It's a winter wonderland down here. It's absolutely gorgeous. Look at that, wee Ralph. An absolute winter wonderland. Look up there. Absolutely beautiful. Gorgeous. What a gorgeous morning. Stunning. So, it was pretty treacherous walking down this morning, but a buddy of mine decided to chum me down, and he slid more than me, so he kind of paved the way, which was really nice. It's stunning. Look at that. Look at Ralph in amongst the trees and the snow. Stunning. So we are on day 4 of our coaching group that we've started, and not to share people's story, but the theme this morning was who were we before the fall? Who were we before the depression, the addiction, the anger, the discontentment, the disbelief, the fear? Because there was a time when we were little where there wasn't any fear, where there wasn't any worry, where there wasn't any concern, where we were free. And for me, in doing the work I do, there's a craving, a yearning almost, for that place of freedom again. What was it that happened that caused us to become the personality, to become the labels, to become non-authentic? What was it that happened? And how do we get back there? How do we start to look at having more freedom? Good morning, Mr. Campbell. I hope you're well. How do we remember that place? So, for me, and you can agree with this or disagree with this, it's always pull back the projection. It's like no one is innocent. We were all born sinners, if you like, and nobody is innocent. So who am I to point my finger at a drug dealer? Have I ever been involved in that? Yes. Who am I to point the finger at a thief or an aggressor or an abuser or a violent person? Who am I to point the finger at that? Well, who am I not to be? Because I have taken drugs. I have been violent. I have used alcohol. I've been a knob. I've been a complete dick in my life. Am I cured of that? Absolutely not. And it's not necessarily just drugs or alcohol that we need to recover from. We can use humour as a defence mechanism. We can use arrogance as a defence mechanism. Arrogance was a very tough one for me to kick. I'm less arrogant than I was 20 or 30 years ago. 20 or 30 years ago. But when I feel threatened or when I feel put under pressure, arrogance can be a thing that I use as a protection mechanism. So when I see an arrogant person or a supercilious or pompous prick, I nearly said, I have a judgment on them. But it's not them that I'm judging. It's only myself that I'm judging. So how do we wake up out of this madness, of this matrix, of this world that we're inhabiting? Is starting to own our projections that we place upon it. We start to own those fractured places within ourselves, and anywhere we point a finger, there's 3 fingers pointing back at me. So when you think about somebody or you're gossiping about somebody in the future moving forward, if this resonates with you, ask yourself the question, Where could I be like that? Have I repressed it so much that I could say I could never do that? I could never, like, somebody goes and murders somebody. Oh, I could never murder somebody. Well, really? Let's see if you've got a knife in your hand and they mess with your children. Let's see how incapable of murder you could be. Or, oh, I could never be like that, or I could never do that. I could never do that to anybody. Just stop for a moment and ask, could I be like that? Let's start to pull back the projections. Let's start to pull back blaming the outer world for a repressed inner feeling that we've buried inside ourselves. It can be easier to blame other people and point the finger at them rather than taking responsibility and ownership for it in ourselves. So one of the wonderful, I'm so glad that the chap in the group this morning brought this up, because it was so true. He was talking about lockdown. He was talking about the first lockdown. And I remember this as well, but had forgot it, so it was nice to be reminded of it. And I'm asking you this question. Can you remember when we went into lockdown in March/April, that it was almost like the further that we went into it, the more that nature came alive? I'm almost positive that the flowers in my garden were brighter, that they bloomed better. I'm almost positive that there were more rabbits and more deer in the field at the back of my house. I'm almost positive that there were more birds and that I was more in tune with their flight paths. It was almost like I was inhabiting a completely different world. A world where nature and me were more connected. I don't know if that was just me and the guy that was in the group this morning. But remember that. Remember what it was like to be part of a more natural world. He's having fun, isn't he? How many minutes are we on? 8 minutes. So I've been ordered, because I was a naughty boy yesterday, by a woman called Myra, where I was a bit cheeky. She was right to say it. So she said to me, I've got to do extra time in the river this morning. Right, so, and some of the things I was talking about yesterday, right, so, which I'll reflect on, is around about that, when we feed the negative, we see the negative. When we're vibrating high, what I notice in myself is that when my vibration's starting to get lower, what do I mean my vibration? Like when I'm positive and I'm fit and I'm healthy and I'm on it and I'm really on it, I've got no time for seeking out negativity whatsoever. But when my mood is lower, I might go looking for information that's going to rev me up like a magnet. Like I've got these homing devices inside me and they go looking for negative experiences and they are not helpful at all. Myra, just to let you know, I've done my bad bit, right? And what I'm going to do for you, Myra, is I'll do a full cranial, right, in this freezing cold river for my being naughty yesterday, and being cheeky to Stevie. I'll put my head under. There you go. That was me. That's my punishment. Oh, not that graceful getting out of there this morning. It's hard because it's just a sheet of ice under there. So, right, the wolves. The two wolves that are fighting inside us. And how do we start to work with that? So, imagine inside your mind, you've got two magnets. You've got a positive magnet and a negative magnet. The positive magnet seeks out positive experiences. The negative magnet seeks out negative experiences because both of them want to be fed from their environment. So, when our energy is low, when our vibration is low, when our frequency is low, whatever you want to call it. How do you pump yourself up? How do you get stoked? It's like when you're on a winning streak, you'll keep winning. When you're on a losing streak, a good gambler knows that when things start to go south, step away from the table. Okay, so this morning, my phone's went off. I got no signal there. Oh, it's come back on. Sorry, I lose signal down here. It's not a great spot for reception. What was I saying there? I was talking about the two wolves that are inside us fighting all the time. So I was speaking yesterday about a young guy and his life around, right? I'm jumping about a wee bit. That's for many reasons. One, I'm very easily distracted. Two, I'm freezing and my brain's jumping about trying to stay warm. So this guy yesterday, that I was talking about that's turned his life around, that was involved in violence. Right. Signal has been absolutely terrible this morning down here at the River Clyde. For those of you that are still watching that have managed to stay with it, this is the bit that I'm going to go for. I spoke yesterday about a young guy who's reached out, who's changed his life. He's on a journey of changing his life. He's making some positive changes in his world, okay? So I started off talking in the Clyde there this morning around about who were we before the fall? Who were we before we stepped into duality? Who were we as that child, that innocent, loving child, that lovely, innocent person, right? So this young guy's done a lot of violent acts, ran around with a lot of violent people, and made a lot of violent choices, and was aggressive, and used a lot of drugs, and lived in a very, very dark place. Now, if he, like me, like you, if you're watching this, you're watching it because you might have a desire to make some changes in your life. You might realise that there's more to life than the way that you're living. You might be looking for some hope. You might be resonating it at some level. I really don't know, right? But we are innocent. I'm right at the spot yesterday where I said I was a hippie, remember? It's like, I'm a hippie. I get some slagging for that off my pals. But we are innocent. We are truly innocent people. He's watching again, right? He's watching and I'm talking about him. That's 2 days in a row I've been talking about him, right? This guy's watching. So, we were born with an element of sin, but we're innocent. We're little bundles of joy. Have you ever held a newborn baby and it pulls out a baseball bat and sets about you and says, "Give us all your money that you owe, my pal"? No. That construct develops over time and through a myriad of choices and experiences that have happened in their life. So, we were innocent. I can only speak about myself, right? Because I'm so narcissistic, right? But I can only speak about myself because nobody else is here. I was innocent. And then I started to compare myself to other kids at school, comparing myself to people that were better off than I was, and also comparing myself to those that I was better off than them, comparing myself that they might have had a mum and dad that were together, comparing that I never had that construct, comparing that I was maybe ashamed of my parents, Or perhaps I felt shame for my friends' lives. And somewhere, when I was a little guy, a voice in my head went, I'm not taking shite off that prick. Or I'm not listening to that. Or they're not getting away with that. And rather than being innocent and being vulnerable, I developed this personality to try and serve me. Now that personality then went down in what they say is you get in with the wrong crowd. No, I was the wrong crowd. And I was the wrong crowd in my own world. And then I kept feeding that. I stole my first car when I was 14 years old. Cut it up. Got into a heap load of shit for that. And then I had to then start to feed that. I had to then start to continue with that path, which then led to drugs and running about with drug dealers and wanting to be the man. I was a complete and utter knobend. I was a total twit. And I was reminded the other night there from a friend from school. Well, he wasn't from school, but he was a friend that met me in a time in my life where mum and dad had just separated and that I had moved to Lanark. And he was just reflecting how arrogant I was. What a complete and utter, full of my own self-importance twit that I was. Right? So these were all personalities. These were all constructs that I created. But that's not the truth. That's not who I am. There's also very nice parts to me. There was also very creative, artistic. I was good at art and all that kind of stuff. But I never fed any of the parts of me because in the world that I was living in, that part of who I was in the jungle couldn't come out, right? I had to get taken out, if you like. So, in 1993, my world started crashing and crumbling down. And I had to stop using chemical drugs because my brain was sparkled. And I started on a road to recovery, the road to Damascus. And I started to change small, incremental parts of myself. And I never did it all at once. My journey of recovery was very, very slow. Now, what I was sharing in the group this morning was, I then jumped into, because I was an addict, I was susceptible to neediness and needing things. I then jumped on to going into a world of qualifications. And I flew all around the world, learning from gurus and teachers and postgraduates in this and postgraduates in that. And I got a qualification in this and a certification in that. And you all right? And blah, blah, blah. But that was all just to fill yet another inadequate part of myself where I felt completely and utterly inadequate and pretty much felt like a failure and never, ever, ever felt good enough, right? And was always trying, and you go, buddy, good boy, and was always trying to be recognised by the outside world and be seen. So this is what I was saying in the group this morning, was up until about 18 months ago, which wasn't that long ago, I wouldn't really like to see pictures of myself. Well, I don't look very good in that, right? And I couldn't look at myself until about 18 months ago. If folk have took a picture of me and I've seen the picture and I go, oh God, I really like that, I look alright in that. And so much so you can actually trace back my Facebook profile, that in the last, my Facebook profile has had pictures of me, because I actually look at them and think, I look alright, I like what I see. But if you look back over the years, there wasn't any pictures of me. It might have been a Northern Soul, or it might have been a symbol, or it might have been a car, or it might have been a motorbike, or it might have been something, because I didn't like to have pictures of myself up. And this is what I've noticed as well. It's like, when I used to put posts up when the picture of me was a motorbike, I would actually look for and see how many people had liked the posts. Whereas in the last 18 months, I just put posts up. And if it helps somebody think, great. And I don't really get any adulation out of the amount of people that like it, comment on it, or whatever. So, who was I, or who were we, before the personality kicked in? Before the personality of, I'm a CEO, or I'm a manager, or I drive this kind of car, or I own that kind of business, or everybody's a gangster nowadays, isn't they? Everybody's watching, oh, what is that guy, that American, Pablo Escobar. It's like that, Pablo Escobar on Netflix. Everybody's watching that, everybody wants to be a gangster, everybody wants to be a footballer, everybody wants to have a, kids are wearing CP jackets and Stone Island jackets, kids are wearing that kind of stuff. It's like, when I was away and you had a pair of $2.99 wellies on and a Adidas 2-stripe, they were called, they weren't quite 3-stripe, and you just played about in the park. New kids have to have Louis this and Louis Vuitton and Versace this, and my lips done and my Botox done and my head done. And why? Because they're trying to feed a personality, because underneath it all they're completely and utterly broken. And that's the vulnerability of our personality, which society's taking advantage of and playing right into our vulnerability and feeding us this stuff, which is only keeping us more separate rather than being more connected. So, based on what I've been babbling my head off about this morning, because I stayed too long in the water because Myra forced me to do that because I was naughty yesterday. I've not really been thinking that straight. I would encourage us to think about, am I being authentic, or am I being a personality? We're all Jock Tamson's bairns, we all bleed, we all hurt, and it might be difficult for you to cry as a West of Scotland male, but we're all struggling, and we're not going to get through this with bravado, and that's going to run out, and that's going to be a really, really nasty car crash. John Campbell, just met this guy. I was talking to Willie about last night. John, what I was saying to Willie last night was, I says, Willie, sort it out, I really want to meet this guy. He's a really nice fella, so it's great to see you turned your life around positive. Want to start helping. Thanks, John. So, I've not turned my life around. I'm still a complete and utter knob. I still make a mess of things. I still fuck shit up. But it's less. It's a lot less. And I'm not serving the master of my ego quite as much as I was. I'm not going to get rid of my ego. I don't want to cause any further disharmony. I don't want to come on here and go, oh, the government are freaking clowns, and the Great Reset, and the government, and this thing with Trump's not really happening with Trump, and that was all just this, and it was all just that, and it was all just the next thing. Come on, follow me, because I'm like the leader of the conspiracy theories, brothers and sisters. No, we're not going to fight disconnection with more disconnection. Whatever's going on is going on. And I can't change it. And I don't need to start a revolution with a whole gang of other people out there. All I can keep doing is keep working on me and have a better day today than I had yesterday. So, thanks very much for tuning in and listening. I really do hope and pray that one person can no go and buy a gram of Charlie today or a bottle of Buckfast and sit down the park and get wrecked and then go up the road and wreck the house so they're waiting to see them being violent and aggressive. And we can start to have a wee bit more harmony in our lives. All the best. Take care. God bless.